Namaskar, hello and welcome to the news. I'm Teena Jha with the daily roundup of all that's making headlines across India and the world. First, the top stories of the day. Ukraine nuclear plant catches fire in Russian shelling. No radiation changes detected, says its state nuclear regulator. Many countries express concern. Prime Minister Modi chairs high-level meeting. Operation Ganga brings home more Indians. IAF plane leaves for Romania with 6 tons of aid to Ukraine. The Prime Minister underscores role of National Hydrogen Mission in making India a hub of green hydrogen. Last phase of polling in Manipur tomorrow. 92 candidates, including 2 women in the fray. Campaigning intensifies for the last round in Uttar Pradesh. And cricketing world mourns the death of Australian legend Shane Warne at the age of 52. Details on each of these headline stories in just a while. But first, a quick run-through of what else made news through the day today. 1,82,000 crore transferred to farmers' accounts under PM Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana. Indian Railways conducts successful test of its anti-collision system Kavach. 97% adults inoculated with first dose of COVID vaccine. NHRC issues notice to Delhi government and DDA over disappearing water bodies. Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister presents budget for 2022-23. MLA lad fund raised to 2 crore rupees. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu inaugurates new Darbar Hall at Raj Bhavan in Goa. DMK wins 20 mayor posts of municipal corporations in Tamil Nadu. Union Minister Piyush Goyal calls for increasing India's share in global trade to 10%. Plastics business to grow to 10 lakh crore rupees in the next 5 years, says government. And Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, Manish Sisodia, inaugurates Delhi Teachers University. First, all the news and updates from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukrainian authorities are claiming that Russian forces have seized control of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, the largest such facility in Europe. A fire broke out at the complex in the southeastern city of Enerhoda early on Friday morning, but it has now been extinguished. Russia has alleged that Ukrainian saboteurs started it. Here's the latest report. Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear power plant under attack. It is Europe's largest nuclear plant that fulfills Ukraine's half of electricity requirement. As of now, experts say the fire has been doused, the facility is safe and radiation levels normal, but there are many big ifs.
As long as there is backup power and the fuel doesn't melt, the water can remain cool and the plant is safe. So the real critical question is whether there is still a continued supply of electricity to run the cooling pumps so that the fuel remains intact. If so, then the plant can be safe indefinitely as long as the power remains there. But that's a big if in a war zone.
Ukrainian President Zelensky warned the European community that if anything happens to the plant, no country in the continent will be left untouched. On Thursday, Ukrainian and Russian representatives met for a second round of talks. Both sides agreed on creating humanitarian corridors for civilian evacuations. Meanwhile, many Ukrainian cities are facing the wrath of the Russian forces. The situation is particularly intense in the southern port city of Mariupol that has been bombarded without respite. Kiev is also under intense fire. A depot caught fire after intense shelling. Outside the city, the 25-kilometer-long Russian convoy is waiting, not moving for the last few days. Reports say the Russian forces are facing strong resistance from Ukraine. Clearly, the conflict is being drawn out for Russia too. Amid the non-stop displacement of people, the grim warnings of a potential nuclear disaster are not helping matters either. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. The International Atomic Energy Agency says there is no change in radiation levels at the nuclear power plant that came under attack on Thursday. The agency also addressed a press conference on the issue. Listen in.
Say that all the safety systems of the 6 reactors at the plant were not affected at all, and that there has been no release of radioactive material.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has requested a meeting of the UN Security Council over the attack on the Ukraine nuclear plant. Johnson spoke to the Ukrainian president on the issue. He said he will also raise the issue with Russia and other allies. He asserted that Britain will do everything possible to ensure that the situation does not worsen. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden announced on Thursday new sanctions against Russian oligarchs and others in President Vladimir Putin's inner circle as Russian forces continue to pummel Ukraine. He told a cabinet meeting that he will continue to impose very severe economic sanctions on those close to Putin. Listen in.
Today I'm announcing that we're adding dozens of names to the list, including one of Russia's wealthiest billionaires, and I'm banning travel to America by more than 50 Russian oligarchs, their families, and their close associates. And we're going to continue to support Ukrainian people with direct assistance. I had a meeting this morning with the quartet down in Southeast Asia, including India and Japan. And we're going to continue to support the people with direct assistance.
And back home, the Indian Air Force is keeping 2 Il-76 military transport planes ready to evacuate Indians from Ukraine's eastern cities of Sumy and Kharkiv via Russian capital Moscow. India will continue Operation Ganga till the last Indian person trapped in Ukraine is evacuated. Asserting this, the Ministry of External Affairs has reported that till date, 10,344 Indians have been evacuated on 48 flights. In the last 24 hours alone, 4,000 Indians have reached India on 18 flights. 16 flights will bring Indians from Romania, Moldova, Slovakia, Poland and Hungary in the next 24 hours.
हमारी इंडियन एम्बेसी बहुत अच्छा वर्क कर रही है, बहुत ही अच्छा रिस्पांस है उसका, एंड हमें बहुत ही जल्द से जल्द निकाला है. बाकी स्टूडेंट्स अभी भी फंसे हुए हैं वहाँ पे, लेकिन हमें बहुत ही जल्दी निकाला है उन्होंने.
बहुत ज़्यादा यूक्रेनियंस इंडियंस को निकलने नहीं दे रहे, तो कुछ हमारे जो दोस्त थे, जानते थे हम लोगों को, उन्होंने बोला कि तुम बोलते तुम यूक्रेनियंस हो. सारे बच्चों ने पर्दे लगा दिए बसेस के और सर नीचे कर दिया, जिससे कि हम सबको लगे हम यूक्रेनियंस हो, हमारी बसेस निकलवा दी. ऐसे करके निकले, नहीं तो निकलना इम्पॉसिबल था.
उन्होंने हमको इस लेवल इस सिचुएशन से ऐसी से जहाँ पे बहुत क्रिटिकल सिचुएशन थी वहाँ से हमको निकाला है. उसके लिए तहे दिल से मैं भारत सरकार का शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहता हूँ.
बट जर्नी वाज वेरी डिफिकल्ट एंड इट्स लाइक आई सेड टू गॉड लाइक इवैक्यूएट एवरीवन.
And moving on now to news from the world of business and economy. Ukrainian nuclear plant by Russian forces in fact sent jitters in Asian stock markets. Investors remain concerned about the broader impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell by 2.5%. Japan's Nikkei was down by 2.25%. South Korea's Kospi lost 1.2%. And Singapore's Straits Times also lost around 1%. Stock markets in India reacted no differently. Ukraine factor dominated the mood and pessimism in the trade. In fact, it was quite visible. Bombay Stock Exchange's Sensex finished with a loss of 769 points and closed at 54,334, while National Stock Exchange Nifty 50 lost around 253 points or 1.5%. At the end of the session, it was at 16,245 levels. Reserve Bank of India Governor Shaktikant Das said the recent geopolitical developments have aggravated the challenges and also the dilemmas for global central banks. He added that global uncertainty has left central banks confused whether they should tweak policies aggressively or gradually. Das emphasized that communication among the central banks needs to be backed with commensurate actions to build credibility and also instill wider confidence in the policies. Sri Lanka's economy is facing mounting challenges with public debt reaching unsustainable levels, says the IMF. The International Monetary Fund has called for urgent reforms in the island nation's economy to get out of its worst crisis. Sri Lanka is facing a severe foreign exchange crisis with falling reserves and the government unable to foot the bill for essential imports. Part of the reason has been COVID-19. The IMF said the country is highly vulnerable to external shocks owing to inadequate external buffers and high risk to public debt sustainability. The economy was also hurt by the Easter Sunday terrorist attacks back in 2019 and major policy changes, including large tax cuts in the same year. And the International Monetary Fund also says it is seeking a realistic, pragmatic and credible deal with Argentina's government to refinance debt of $45 billion. The IMF said the agreement is a step on future change of Argentina's deep-rooted challenges to sustainable growth. It will allow Argentina to begin repaying its debt starting in 2026 and continue through 2034. The deal also transforms the existing arrangement, had concentrated payments in 2022 and 2023. And moving on to some election news now. Preparations are complete for the second and final phase of voting in Manipur. 22 seats spread over 10 districts will go to polls on Saturday. 92 candidates, including 2 women, are in the fray. 11 seats are reserved for scheduled tribes. Earlier, the Election Commission ordered re-polling at 12 polling booths in 5 assembly seats that went to polls in the first phase. A record turnout of 88.63% was recorded in this phase. And Saturday is the last day for campaigning for the 7th phase of Uttar Pradesh polls. On Friday, Prime Minister Modi addressed a rally in Mirzapur. He said the entire world is going through a critical phase. Many countries are affected by epidemics, unrest, uncertainty, but India has overcome these challenges by scaling up its efforts. The Prime Minister said people have a choice to defeat dynastic parties and the mafia and also help the BJP win for development.
इनका इतिहास हजारों करोड़ के घोटालों का है, यूपी को लूटने का है। इनका इतिहास आतंकियों को छोड़ने का है, दंगाइयों को मदद करने का है।
Continuing with news and views from the poll-bound states, Union Home Minister Amit Shah hit out against the opposition parties at a campaign rally in Ghazipur. He said this election is an opportunity to secure the future of crores of backward category people in the state. He also predicted the opposition parties will receive a severe drubbing. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh questioned the policies of the opposition parties addressing a rally in Jaunpur. He said a person who provides solution to the problem of hunger and corruption is a true socialist and a nationalist. The opposition parties did not fit into this bill, that's what he said. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath took a jibe at the opposition on the issue of development. Speaking in Chandoli, he said the arrival of the BJP has forced the criminals to flee the bills. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi and Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra campaigned in Varanasi, while Rahul Gandhi criticized the BJP on the issues of poverty, unemployment, inflation and also the current crisis in Ukraine. Samajwadi Party President Akhilesh Yadav held public meetings in Mao, Ghazipur and Chandoli. He also appealed for votes while speaking, while addressing a road show in Varanasi. BSP President Mayawati targeted the BJP and also the Samajwadi Party in Varanasi. She said the BJP is working with a casteist mindset and is ignoring Dalits, backwards and Muslims at every level. On to some other news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a webinar on energy for sustainable growth. He said the recently announced National Hydrogen Mission can make India a hub of green hydrogen, given its abundant renewable energy power. He also called on the private sector to increase its efforts in this area.
हमें अपनी शुगर मिल्स और डिस्टिलरीज को और अधिक आधुनिक बनाने की जरूरत है। इसमें भी टेक्नोलॉजी अपग्रेडेशन आवश्यक है। इसके लिए हमें ऐसे डिस्टिलिंग प्रोसेसेस पर काम करना होगा जिनसे पोटाश और कंपोस्ट बायोगैस जैसे बाय प्रोडक्ट्स भी हमें अतिरिक्त प्राप्त हो।
Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav on Friday announced the success of the anti-collision test for the Kavach system. The indigenous system has been developed by the Indian Railways to avoid train accidents. The minister held an on-site inspection near Sikandrabad. Automatic train protection system, Kavach, is designed to help the railways achieve zero accidents. The test involved 2 trains, one with the railway minister on board and the other with the chairman of the railway board, hurtling towards each other at full speed. Both the trains stopped 380 meters apart. The Kavach will be the world's cheapest automatic train collision protection system. The government has approved modernization plan 4 for Central Armed Police Forces. The modernization plan has a financial outlay of 1,523 crore rupees. The Home Ministry will be implementing it. It will equip the CAPFs with state-of-the-art weapons and equipment as per their operational needs. The scheme is aimed at equipping CAPFs to improve overall operational efficiency and preparedness. And with that, time for a short break here. But when we return, is it back to normal after COVID, or is it too soon to say so? We'll find out the answer when we return on the other side. Do stay with us.
But how does Beijing see this war in Ukraine?
If Russia is going to be isolated by the West, then they have to rely more on China. And a Russia that is weak would be at the Chinese mercy.
The war has already impacted the global economy.
Sanctions have rarely brought about a desired change in behavior, especially for a large country. At best, it is a device for political leaders to show that we are doing something without actually having to put people in harm's way.
Welcome back. You're watching the news. Let's now get you all the updates from across the states. Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister Jairam Thakur presented the 5th budget of his government. The government hiked the Legislature Area Development Fund to 2 crore rupees. It also increased the discretionary grant of MLAs from 10 lakh rupees to 12 lakh rupees. Haryana Assembly proceedings were disrupted over a bill to prevent illegal conversion. Assembly Speaker Gyan Chand Gupta suspended Congress MLA Raghuveer Singh Kadyan from the budget session for tearing a copy of the bill in the House. Congress members also staged a walkout in protest against the action. Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia took part in the Heritage Walk at the Purana Killa in Delhi under the Jan Aushadhi Jan Jagran Abhiyan. He said the Jan Aushadhi Week that will continue till the 7th of March is inspiring trust among people on getting affordable medicines. Defense exhibition DEF Expo 2022 has been postponed due to logistics issues. The exhibition was to be held in Gandhinagar from 10th to 14th of March. Australia's High Commissioner to India, Barry O'Farrell, held discussions with Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan on the investment potential in several sectors, including industry and tourism. The state government has invited investors from Australia and sought its cooperation on setting up the Centre of Excellence. The DMK has nominated 28-year-old SC woman candidate R. Priya as its mayoral candidate for Greater Chennai Corporation. She was elected councillor from Ward 74 of Tiruvekanagar zone. In Maharashtra, the BJP is adamant on its demand for the resignation of Minister Nawab Malik. The party held protests inside and outside the assembly. The BJP says it is the first time that a minister is in jail. A herd of endangered hanguls have reached the Dashigam National Park of Jammu and Kashmir. The number of hanguls in the state has gone up to 237. Wildlife Day was observed on Thursday to raise awareness on the significance of wildlife. And news now from other parts of the world. Life is returning to normal in South Asia, and people hope the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic is behind them. Experts are optimistic the most recent wave, driven by the Omicron variant, which brought relatively low levels of death, has reinforced immunity bolstered by widespread vaccine coverage in the region. Here's a report. The markets are crowded again. Traffic is jamming the roads. Migrant workers have returned to cities for work. And the young people are back at schools and universities, many of them for the first time in 2 years. It isn't quite how things were before the pandemic. Mask mandates still exist in some places, but infections are steadily declining. In India, falling number of cases and high vaccination rates are giving people reasons to be optimistic.
कस्टमर अब थोड़ा डर उनका हट गया है कस्टमर का, घर से कस्टमर निकल रहा है, तो अब शॉपिंग करने के लिए आ रहे हैं कस्टमर.
In Nepal, thousands of people gathered at the Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu for Shivratri. In Bangladesh too, people are cautiously taking off their masks while dealing with the fallout of the pandemic. Experts agree that opening up is the right move amid the falling case numbers, but they do caution that the optimism should be tempered with lessons learned in the pandemic years. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. And some other global updates in World Wrap. At least 30 people were killed and 50 others injured when a bomb ripped through a crowded Shia mosque during the Friday prayer in Peshawar, Pakistan. A rescue official said the blast occurred at a Jamia mosque in Kissa Khwani Bazaar area when the worshippers were offering prayers. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the blast. Officials said 10 injured people are currently critical. China's top political advisory body opened its annual session on Friday. In his opening address, the head of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference praised the performance of the ruling party's leadership over the past year. He said she and the Central Committee of the party led the whole party and the people of all ethnic groups to calmly respond to the changes of a pandemic not seen in a century. Over 2,000 party officials are attending the session. Argentine prosecutors are seeking a 4.5-year prison sentence for an Argentine bishop if he is convicted of the sexual abuse of 2 seminarians in the northern province of Salta. Almost 40 witnesses have been summoned to testify during the ongoing trial, with a verdict and sentencing expected on Friday. Gustavo Zanzetta is accused of continuous simple sexual abuse aggravated by being committed by a minister of recognized religion to the detriment of 2 young people. A heavy sandstorm hit Kuwait on Friday, giving everything a beige tinge, including the Kuwait Towers landmark. The blinding sandstorm reduced visibility on the streets of Kuwait City, where shops had to be closed. Meteorologists say wind traveling at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour caused the storm. One of the most biodiverse countries in the world, Peru, is pushing for legislation for animal trafficking crimes to be considered as organized crime. Authorities estimate that more than 80,000 animals have been smuggled from the country in the past 2 decades. Peru has over 300 species considered at risk of trafficking. Species of frogs, birds, turtles and monkeys are among those seized by authorities at airports and markets. And now all the action from the world of sports in our sports segment. Starting today with a terrible news in cricket, Shane Warne, considered to be one of the greatest spinner in the game, has is no more. Warne, 52, died of suspected heart attack today. Shane was found unresponsive in his villa, and despite the best efforts of medical staff, he could not be revived. Warne's management confirmed in a statement to Australian media he was in Koh Samui, Thailand, where the sad incident took place. The news is the second devastating blow for Australian cricket within 24 hours, with fellow great Rodney Marsh also dying today morning. As mentioned, legendary Australian wicket-keeper batsman Rodney Marsh died at the age of 74. Marsh, who played 96 tests and was later a long-time national selector, had been in an induced coma and passed away peacefully in an Adelaide hospital today morning. Marsh had suffered a heart attack during a charity event last week. India were 357 for 6 at stumps on day 1 of the first test against Sri Lanka at Mohali's PCA Stadium. The home team chose to bat first after winning the toss. New test captain Rohit Sharma gave India a flying start. Both the Indian openers, however, were back before the team score read a century. Virat Kohli, along with Hanuma Vihari, then added 90 runs for the third wicket. Kohli got out for 45 and Vihari soon followed with a score of 58. Rishabh Pant then had 2 fruitful partnerships with Shreyas Iyer and Ravindra Jadeja. Pant missed on 100 by just 4 runs, getting out for 96 made of just 97 balls. Mohali Test is a landmark match for Virat Kohli. Today, he became the 12th Indian to play 100 Test matches. The BCCI felicitated Kohli on this occasion. He also got to the milestone of 8,000 Test runs, thus becoming the 6th Indian after Gavaskar, Tendulkar, Dravid, Lakshman and Sehwag to do so. Kohli, though, did not reach the one landmark that cricket fans have been waiting for close to 2.5 years now. Virat missed on a half-century, getting out at 45. The first day of Test cricket on Pakistani soil in 24 years has not gone down well for the Australians. Pakistan were 245 for the loss of just 1 wicket at stumps on day 1 of the Rawalpindi Test match. Opener Imam-ul-Haq was the star for the home team. He scored 100 and was not out on 132 at close of play. Azhar Ali was batting on 64. Australia today used 8 bowlers but to little avail. The 2022 Women's ODI World Cup started with a big upset on the opening day as Caribbean Hayley Matthews' 119 trumped Kiwi captain Sophie Devine's 108. West Indian Deandra Doughton stole the show when she picked up 2 wickets and played her part in a run-out in a manic last over to consign host New Zealand to a shock 3-run defeat. Riding on Matthews' 100, Indian women set a target of 260 for New Zealand. The home team were all out for 256 with 1 ball to spare. India has grabbed a 2-0 lead in the Davis Cup World Group 1 playoff tie against Denmark. Ramkumar Ramanathan and Yuki Bhamri were victorious in the singles matches played on the opening day. Ramkumar cruised to a 6-3, 6-2 win over Christian Sigsgaard, while Yuki doubled India's lead with a 6-4, 6-4 win in the second singles against Michael Torpegaard. And in a stunning reversal of its own decision taken just a day back, the International Paralympic Committee has banned Russian and Belarusian athletes from the Winter Paralympic Games. The Winter Paralympic Games began today in Beijing with an official opening ceremony. The competition begins on Saturday. And before we wind up the bulletin, a relook at the headlines. Ukraine nuclear plant catches fire in Russian shelling. No radiation changes detected, says its state nuclear regulator. Many countries express concern. Prime Minister Modi chairs high-level meeting. Operation Ganga brings home more Indians. IAF plane leaves for Romania with 6 tons of aid for Ukraine. The Prime Minister underscores role of National Hydrogen Mission in making India a hub of green hydrogen. The last phase of polling in Manipur tomorrow, 92 candidates, including 2 women in the fray. Campaigning intensifies for the last round in Uttar Pradesh. And cricketing world mourns the death of Australian legend Shane Warne at the age of 52. So that's it from us in this bulletin. Thank you for your time.